Short-handed, shot right on, save Anderson as he robs Granlund. Jankowski with a strong move, he scores! Mark Jankowski, yeoman's work to the front of the net, and he ties it at 1. Now Carolina, Stankoven's out in front, Hall feeds him, he scores! Make it 3 in a row for Logan Stankoven. Back up, good keeping, stall, chase and score! We're going to Chatfield. And Mr. Anderson with the save on McTavish. An exclamation point for Frederick Anderson.
His eyes, just like you saw in this save early in this period, you could tell he was not going to be denied a victory tonight.
Hey, it's the Canes Corner Podcast. I am Adam Gold. Thank you very much for spending some of your Thursday evening with us after a 5-2 Hurricanes win over the Ducks of Anaheim. I know we're not calling them that anymore, and they were certainly not mighty tonight. But tonight was a win that was different from a lot of other wins. Tonight's win was gritty, not pretty. This was never going to be a pretty game. Anaheim did not come in here feeling good about themselves. They have just one win in their last 10, now one in their last 11 games. The Hurricanes were going to have to grind it out because Anaheim was going to try and play that way. They have a high level of skill, but they can also grind it out. And they were going to force Carolina to play that type of game, and they did. And it took Carolina a while, and there were a couple of mistakes along the way. But the Hurricanes were absolutely grinding, and they picked up a very impressive 5-2 win. We'll talk about, the goals that show just how grindy they were. But the last play-by-play clip we played was really an inconsequential play in the context of the game. The Hurricanes had a 5-2 lead, and there were, a handful of seconds left, 10 seconds, 12 seconds left. Mason McTavish, heck of a player, was in alone, and Freddie Andersen stopped him, point blank, grade A scoring chance. And Anderson made the glove save. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a save. Carolina was going to win the game anyway. There were just a handful of seconds left. Anderson just could have let it go. And Carolina still would have gotten the win. But it was a big save for Anderson. He was dialed in the entire night. He made a few really big saves early. He got Granlund early. He got Ryan Strome early. And he ends up with that save on McTavish late. That's the cherry on top. In the grand scheme of things, doesn't look like a big deal, right? Anderson only had to make 11 saves tonight. 13 shots on goal, 2 goals he had no chance to stop. 11 saves, but some really good stops. And the Hurricanes pick up a 5-2 win. It had been 2 months and 2 days since Anderson last won a game. A guy who has been so good for the Hurricanes for his entire time here. I understand. Y'all are tired of Freddie. Freddie's tired of you too. But Anderson has been a very good player for this franchise. And they decided to run it back with him for one more year. It's on a pretty cheap deal. And it had been a struggle. Freddie was playing fine. I think we did the breakdown. It was like the first 8 starts and the next 8 starts, and now this number is growing. But like if you look at the first 8 starts and the next 8 starts, the first 8 starts weren't awesome, but they weren't terrible. And the next 8 starts were bad. But the last couple, He's been good. He was good against Colorado the other day. He was good against Colorado on Saturday. Didn't win. Team fell apart in the third period. Allowed 2 power play goals. But he was fine. He was fine in the Colorado game. And tonight didn't get a ton of work, which makes it more difficult. But he was good tonight again. Good for Freddie. Look, we don't know how the rest of the season is going to play out. We don't know how healthy everybody's going to be. But if you've been paying attention, in the regular season, both goalies are going to play. And both goalies have to be ready to play a fair amount. And my guess is that all things being equal, Brandon Bussi will get 3 out of every 5 starts. But if Anderson is playing 40% of the time and the Hurricanes want to finish first in the East and make every team come here first in the playoffs, Freddie's going to have to play well. And Freddie played well tonight. So Brandon Bussi's still going to be the 1, and Anderson is going to be the 2. But we don't roll with one guy like New York will, or Florida will, or Tampa will. That's not the way it works here with the Hurricanes. They're going to use both goalies. So they're going to need both Brandon Bussi and Freddie Anderson to play. And here's what would be the best case scenario, is that Anderson plays well enough to give Rod something to think about. To basically allow Rod to go, doesn't matter who we play, we're going to be fine. And we all understand that the team is going to say all the right things about Freddie. They play the same way in front of Anderson that they play in front of Bussi. But we all know, we can tell who the better goalie is, especially over that stretch where Anderson was no good. But for the last couple of starts, he's been good. And he's been showing signs of climbing out of this hole. So, more power to Frederick Anderson. He gets his first win in 2 months and 2 days. It's a long time for a guy who is used to winning and winning and winning and winning. You look at his record with the Hurricanes. Freddie Anderson just wins. He doesn't have to be great. He just wins. So, good for him. Good for Freddie. And by the way, don't suck up Freddie now. Those of you who are rooting for Anderson, I kid. I just kid. Yeah, suck up to him, man. Why not? Oh, one more thing I wanted to bring up about Anderson. And I understand why he won't admit it in the locker room. You just don't want to admit that you were searching for it. But I think it's pretty obvious that Frederick Anderson was relieved that he won a hockey game. When you win as much as he has won, especially here, and you go 2 months and 2 days since your last win, yeah, relief is going to be the first thing you feel. So credit to him. Credit to Freddie for not giving in to that emotion and letting on. But he's a human being. So, and I'll bet you, and you could see from the storm surge how everybody was thrilled for Anderson. So good for Freddie. Good for Freddie. And now to the reason Carolina won.
Jankowski with a strong move. He scores! Mark Jankowski! Yeoman's work to the front of the net, and he ties it at 1.
This was never going to be a pretty win. It was a gritty one. And for those people who don't think Carolina can win games like this, yeah, I know it's Anaheim. You can think what you want. This game was always going to be mucky. And the Hurricanes had to grind it out. And they were flat in the first period. I absolutely believe there was a hangover from Tuesday night's game against Dallas, which was an emotional game for the crowd. I think an emotional game, whether they want to admit it or not, for the players, who not only had Stankoven playing against his former team, but Mikko Rantanen was here. We know how the fans felt. Carolina thought they had pulled off the coup of last season by getting one of those players to come here. And then, air out of the tires. It didn't work. And you had to pivot. And Eric Tulsky did a great job of pivoting. Meanwhile, you had two elite goal scorers walk out of Lenovo Center. Natchez, who you needed to send out to get Rantanen, then Rantanen. And you got a very good player in Logan Stankoven, but he's not one of those, right? But that game on Tuesday night, I thought left everybody a little flat tonight. And you knew, and I said it, whether you saw one of my videos on TikTok or you heard one of the first intermission report, Carolina is going to have to find a spark somewhere. And the spark was provided by Mark Jankowski. So, and that line was excellent tonight. We're going to go through Carolina's, some of the data from the game, which just kind of gives you an indication of how good Carolina really was tonight. So, Eric Robinson wins multiple battles along the wall. He's fighting to get the puck deep. It's along the wall on the right. He finally gets the puck into the corner. Jankowski skates onto it, brings it out of the corner, powers his way to the front of the net with Will Carrier in front, occupying, I think, two players. And Jankowski forces it underneath and through Ville Husso to tie the game at 1. To that point, the Hurricanes really weren't generating a ton. But that particular goal really unlocked Carolina. And Jankowski was very good tonight. As an aside, I want to say this, and I'm not saying this gratuitously or anything. I'm saying it because I believe it to be true. If Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who was a couple of booths down, was watching the game and paying attention, and I know he was, because here's what we all should know about KK. He wants to play. He wants to play, and he wants to contribute to this team. The way Jankowski scored that goal is the way Jesperi Kotkaniemi, if he could play like that, and he can, if he does that, and he can do it consistently, he will get into the lineup and he will stay in the lineup because he gives them so much more than Jankowski can give them, with one exception, and we'll get to it. But that's what Jesperi Kotkaniemi has to do. And again, I'm not trying to be gratuitous and take a shot at him. There's some of you that think I don't like him. It's not the case. I recognize that he is a better option at that position than anybody else they have at that position. But he's got to earn that spot. He's been gifted that spot in years past. And now, through years of production attrition and mistakes, he has lost all of the grace. But it's there for him to win back if he can do it. It's not easy to reset what your own self-image. But Rod said it the other day, man. We're not even looking for production. Like, Mark Jankowski's game tonight was effective without the goal. Jesperi has to get to that point where he's not going to be measured by points. So if he can do that, then he'll play. because he's a better version of what Mark Jankowski can be. Except, of course, when Jankowski is winning 14 out of 21 faceoffs, because that's what he did tonight. 14 of 21 in the faceoff circle. That's what Jankowski did tonight. Carolina on the dot was just amazing. Sebastian Aho, 10 out of 13. Jordan Stahl, 13 out of 19. Jankowski, 14 out of 21. Let me do that math. 37 for 53. 37 out of 53. That's pretty good. So Carolina, who has struggled and they're below 500 on the year in the faceoff circle, that's a pretty dominant night. So good for them. And I know in the post game, Rod had mentioned, the Aho line wasn't great tonight. I thought the Aho line was good. It just didn't generate a ton of great offense. It just wasn't a game for them. This was a game for the grinders. And while those guys can grind, this was really a game for the players that live in that grinder area. It was a game for Jankowski, Robinson, Carrier, Stahl, Martinuk, Jarvis, Stankoven, Hall, to a lesser extent Blake, although I thought that whole line was very good. But analytically speaking, data-wise, Carolina dominated the game. 2-1 shot attempts, 3-1 shots on goal. Scoring chances were about even. Actually, they were underwater in high danger chances, according to Natural Stat Trick, and I don't disagree with it. Carolina, what they didn't do was, turn a lot of their possession and shot attempts into great scoring chances. But they had the puck. They played their game. And if you've been paying attention to the Hurricanes over the years, you understand that there are plenty of nights where they just have the puck and it doesn't necessarily translate into great scoring chances. But in a night like this, they were still able to generate, forget about the empty net goal, although the empty net goal kind of mattered tonight in kind of an intangible way. But they generated 4 goals out of their puck possession tonight. So we've got Freddie. We've got the gritty nature of the win, the Jankowski, which to me was the most important play of the entire game. For those people who are not necessarily familiar with the way we do 3 stars in the post-game show, we do 3 stars. We also do a player of the game and a defensive player of the game. And I know people thought that, Jankowski or somebody else should have gotten a star. Well, Jankowski, to me, got the player of the game. He could have easily gotten a star. He was dynamite tonight. But to me, that was the key moment in the entire game. Because if Carolina, the arena was kind of lifeless, and Carolina, they weren't going through the motions. They were playing fine. But they needed to find a way to get through, and Jankowski's goal broke them through. And I also think it was in many ways a reminder that if you do the things that we need you to do, especially in a game like this, that ultimately Carolina was going to get rewarded, and they did. The Stankoven goal was a good play by Chatfield to force a turnover. Taylor Hall skates onto the loose puck. The patience that Hall shows before passing it over to Stankoven was great because he could give it to Stankoven and give him a lot of room. He's skating in alone. But then it's just a simple breakaway. But Hall had the opportunity to make it more than that, and that's what he did. That's the cerebral nature of a player like Taylor Hall. Hold on to the puck, make yourself a shooting threat, because it ultimately was a 2-on-none. And it made the whole play very, very easy for Stankoven to finish. 3 goals in his last 3 games. The Chatfield goal, that's just the Stahl line doing Stahl line things, keeping the puck in the zone, and ultimately Chatfield gets a shot through, and it beats Ville Husso to make it 3-2. Carolina would never look back. Jackson Blake gets a goal and a rebound. Last couple of games, he's missed absolute bunnies that he probably should have scored. And I'll bet you if we talk to Jackson, how many goals in the last 4 or 5 games do you think you should have scored? He would have went 4, 5, 6. I don't know. He has had opportunities. He had a couple of good opportunities earlier in the game tonight. And the right place, right time, quick reaction to a rebound, backhand slides it into essentially an empty net. So the Hurricanes got goals from 3 of their 4 lines. Good play throughout the lineup, and then the Taylor Hall empty net goal. That's one of those things where, look, empty net goals they're candy. But the way Hall played, he was my first start tonight. The way Hall played, he deserved the candy. That's the reward for the way he played. He's really had a good season. And the good thing about Taylor Hall, and I've said this before, right now he's playing in a top 6 role for Carolina. If you think about, breaking up Carolina's lineup into scoring lines and checking lines. Although with Jarvis on the stall line, it should be a scoring line. And it did. It scored a goal tonight. But right now, Hall is playing in a top 6 scoring line role. But the beauty is that it doesn't have to stay that way. Because about half the time, maybe more, Hall will play on Carolina's 4th line. Because ultimately, he'll play with Robinson and whoever the center is on that line. Jankowski, Philp, Kokaniemi, whoever that is. Hall will go back and play with Robinson. And that's a line that should do damage and normally does. They just won't get the same amount of minutes. Hall will get his time in the power play. So, and then you can always play him up at times. But to me, there's short windows for Taylor Hall to do that. He doesn't quite have that same burst all the time. And at some point, we're going to go back to whether it's Jarvis with Aho and Svechnikov or Jarvis joins Stankoven and Blake. Probably not. I still think ultimately they'll put Ehlers back there and put Jarvis up with Aho and Svechnikov, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. But they've got options. And with Taylor Hall and his ability to play up, heck, you could do that with Eric Robinson too, depending on what you're looking for. The Hurricanes are in pretty good shape. That doesn't mean that I don't think Carolina needs to add. I do. I think the head coach does too. But right now, Carolina's got a really, really good setup at forward. We'd love for them to be a little bit bigger. We'd love to get a better second center. I know that. We talk about it all the time. But the Hurricanes are in pretty good shape as we sit here. Blue line was great again. Shane Gostisbehere played another strong game. My gosh, he's been so good. 3 blocked shots. He was a +3 tonight. He had an assist. He had a couple of shots on goal, 5 attempts. Jalen Chatfield had 2 points, a goal, and an assist, his first goal of the season. He had 3 shots on goal, 5 attempts, a hit. He was a +2, played 21 minutes. Keandre Miller continues to play well. That was another good, strong game for him. He was absolutely hung out to dry. It's really Nick Ehlers' mistake, right? Miller probably makes initially the wrong decision on the Ehlers turnover. If Miller doesn't go to try to play the puck and keep it in the zone, then if he retreats because he figures he can't get to it, if he does that, then I believe that we don't see the 3-on-1 at the end. But that's not what we saw. That's not what happened. And what happened was that Ehlers had a backhand pass out into, I think it was a backhand pass. I'm trying to think. Maybe. It was a pass out into the middle of the offensive zone toward the blue line, and it wasn't accurate. And if Miller just retreats initially, if his first reaction is to sink back, then I think Carolina's okay. but his first reaction was to go forward to keep the puck in, and it ended up going the other way. He got back, and he was the only defender at a 3-on-1 after Sean Walker took the initial puck carrier, but it was still a 3-on-1. But Ehlers, Aho, and Svechnikov were cut all the way up the ice. It was a bad play by Nick, but and Carolina gave up the goal. But ultimately they came back and they won the game. But I thought Miller played well. I thought Sean Walker was good again. Alexander Nikishin played I thought really everybody played well. There really weren't the lapses tonight that we have seen before, except and Chatfield got one of my stars, although he did fall asleep on the Granlund tap-in goal that made it 2-1. They got away with it. It should have been a goal anyway, but Carolina got away with it. There was a post, and then a puck went through the crease. Really just missed going in. And I think everybody just went, wow, we dodged the bullet there. And they just, all of a sudden, nobody had Granlund right behind Chatfield. I mean, just snooze after getting a lucky break. And ultimately, the goal that you should have allowed, you ended up allowing. But again, I thought Carolina's blue line played very, very well. Real quick shout out. Who we have? McLeansville, Pittsburgh, Climate Pledge Arena, Talia. I know you'll be dialed in on Saturday when the Kraken are here. Cali Caniacs checking in. Bolivia, North Carolina. Whitby, Ontario. Hillsborough, North Carolina. All of that very good. All right. Trying to think if there is anything else that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, just really like the analytics of what Carolina allowed or did tonight. Mark Jankowski's line, in terms of Corsi for and against, 18-1. 18-1. They had 7 shots to 0 allowed. Pretty good. Stankoven's line, 17-6, 12 shots to 3 allowed. Even Aho's line, again, offensively, it wasn't pretty for that group because it wasn't a game for them. 16-7 attempts, 8-3. They didn't allow much. Carolina was really stingy defensively. And that's a very, very good win for them because it was a win that was not, the way a lot of people think it's going to be. Carolina's ended up being a very good transition team, and they've been at times like they have moved the puck really, really well, but tonight wasn't a game for that. Tonight was a game for grit and grime and determination, and they showed that they could win that type of a game. And Freddie Andersen showed that he could be a winner again. And I'm sorry, that's a pretty good thing, pretty good development for Carolina, just to show that you could win a game again. So, good for them. That will do it for us. This has been the Canes Corner podcast. Gosh, I don't even know if I mentioned the Aluminum Company of North Carolina early. The Aluminum Company of North Carolina, if it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. You should check them out for all of your exterior home improvement needs. Canes can get a 4th consecutive win Saturday when they take on the Seattle Kraken. By the way, if you are scoring at home, let me just see, did we got a final score? Gosh, the Avalanche won 8 or are winning 8-1. It's early in the 3rd period, and it's 8-1. My gosh, who's got the goals there? Brock Nelson's got a couple. There's Brent Burns with his 6th. Marty Natchez got 20 now. That came on the power play. McCarr scored. Well, look at that. McKinnon scored. Josh Manson had 2 goals tonight. My Lord, that team is on fire. Predators beat the Islanders in a shootout, so New York picks up a point. So Carolina's lead in the Metro is now 4 points. Carolina's on 57. The Islanders are on 53. Philadelphia is on 52. Pittsburgh 51, Washington 50. Devils and Rangers each lost tonight. Devils are in a tough way right now. Not getting good goaltending, and also have played a little soft. Montreal and Detroit both have 56 points, one better than Toronto, or rather than Tampa, although Tampa's got plenty of games in hand. Buffalo has 50 points. Toronto 49. Maple Leafs starting to play a little better right now. Florida, who lost tonight, is at 47. There's going to be some good teams in the East that are going to miss the playoffs. The East is good. We all know that Colorado, Dallas, although Dallas isn't playing well right now, but Colorado is the best team. Dallas and Minnesota are really, really good. Those are probably the three best teams in the league right now. But after that, and they're all in the same division, so only one of them is coming out. It's amazing. See, this is the format that I hate, but it's the format that we have. So only one of those teams is coming out. I personally think Carolina has proven that they can play with all three of them. And somebody's coming out of the East. I think the East has more good teams than the West. The West has the higher caliber of their best teams. And I think Vegas ultimately will be one of those teams. And Edmonton is Edmonton. But I think the East has more good than the West. Because I think the worst teams in the East are teams like the Rangers. Not so much the Devils of late. They're confusing to me. Boston. Teams that have elite level goaltending. Just haven't been able to figure it out. And now the Rangers are banged up. All right, we got to say goodbye. We'll see everybody on Saturday, the Hurricanes and the Seattle Kraken here at Lenovo. And maybe Carolina can win a fourth in a row. Most they've won consecutively this year is 5. See if they can win 4 in a row. See everybody tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Well, by the time you listen to this, it might be tomorrow. Saturday on the Canes Corner podcast. Good night.